Hey everyone, welcome back to NFL Network. Lance Zierlein joins us again. He's the draft expert. We have draft questions, so let's get some answers, Lance. All right, the Vikings.
Yep.
Assess our draft needs in 2019.
Well, obviously you need guard help. You need at least one, maybe two guards. I think you could argue that drafting a tackle would make some sense as well. With Riley getting a little bit older, defensive tackle is a position that I think won't come as any surprise. And then tight end and wide receiver. Having an additional pass catcher, whether it's there along the outside to allow, the move inside for Diggs, that would make some sense to me. Or you could go in the other direction and say, let's get our pass catcher at the tight end position. And then you can choose between a matchup tight end that can play from the slot or more of a wide tight end like Rudolph, where you can play in line and not only get some help from run blocking standpoint, but a guy who could go out there and catch passes too. So those are the positions I think make the most sense.
Those are the needs maybe for the Vikings. The Vikings will be at number 18. What do you think is going to line up for availability at that spot? You're right in the middle of the first round, so you guys have done a lot of mock drafts. What are you kind of seeing consistently at 18?
Well, there's a lot of contingencies that fall in place, and I do think that from an offensive line standpoint, that could be a spot where you have someone fall to you, maybe even a Jonah Williams, that would be an interesting dilemma there for Minnesota if you have Jonah Williams, because I think he can play tackle, guard, or center. What his best position is, that's to be determined. But I do think that a guard or a tackle could definitely show up in that sweet spot. And I think Noah Fant, there's an outside shot that Noah Fant, the tight end from Iowa who worked out so well, such a great athlete, he could be there as well at number 18.
What if, a lot of times the top center in the class is a mid or late first round guy? How about that?
Yeah, so Garrett Bradbury, Pat Elflein has had experience playing center and guard. For me, Garrett Bradbury is just a center. So then you'd have to have Elflein, you'd have to be confident that you could move him back to guard and he could play where he played in college there his junior season. So that would make a little sense. Or if they wanted to go Eric McCoy and surprise some people with Eric McCoy, another talented player who is a center and might have some guard potential as well from Texas A&M, that could be a guy that would be a surprise selection as well, whether they're at 18 or in a trade back scenario.
It's hard enough to slot teams and players and match them up, but then trades can happen in this thing too.
Sure.
And Vikings GM Rick Spielman has been known to make a trade or two in the draft. Have you assessed that market at all at 18 for the Vikings and what's happening behind the Vikings?
I think trading is very difficult to project because you have to have a team that has the capital, draft capital a lot of times to move up, or you have to have a position, maybe a run on a position, or a player slide where a team says, we've got to have that guy in that spot. So that's very difficult to project. I do think that because teams will have different opinions of quarterbacks, Haskins, Locke, and Daniel Jones, that could be an interesting spot for a quarterback trade up because no one's really thought about that or talked about that. And then the other position would be, I think, Noah Fant. If Noah Fant fell and the Vikings said, we like him, but we think there's depth at tight end, which there is in this draft, you could see another team jump up there and say, we want to get a special athlete at the number 18 spot at tight end. So, finding a suitor, would you be willing to go, would Spielman be willing to go all the way out of the first round? That's another question that would have to be asked.
Yeah, and we're going to find those answers out later on in the draft. Last question, I think it's a good one for you. Okay. Everyone talks about the first round. We're all trying to mock the first round. There's so many good players available. Those might actually be the easiest picks, for these GMs and teams to make. What about the middle rounds? Where's the depth in this class for those middle round picks?
Well, there's depth on the offensive line at some tackle if you get into the second round. Guard, center into the third round, I think you've got a chance to find that as well. So guys like Max Sharping, who can play tackle or guard from Northern Illinois, that would be a guy at round 2. Defensive tackle, there's a guy named Armon Watts, who I think is a good fit for Minnesota, a defensive tackle from Arkansas. You go turn on the Alabama game, he had a great game against Alabama. Tristan Hill from Southern Florida, from USF, that's another guy, a defensive tackle need. And then tight end, we talked about needs. If you want a tight end, Kahale Warring from San Diego State is that Y inline combination tight end, if you will. then from a pass catching standpoint, Josh Oliver, maybe in the 4th round, is a guy who has good size and is really athletic in space from San Jose State. That would be a 4th round type of tight end that the Minnesota Vikings could look at. So, you look at wide receivers, Darius Slayton from Auburn would be a 3rd round type that could play outside. He's very fast. He's got size. He could stretch the field for Kirk Cousins as well. So there's wide receivers, another sneaky deep position there when you hit about round 3.
Yeah, all righty. If you love the draft, you love Lance's analysis, you can catch more of it at NFL.com and, of course, on NFL Network. Thanks for your time, Lance.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.